Counterfactual historical scenarios often speculate about events that did not happen, such as the Americas not being discovered. However, a far more radical and impactful scenario is to imagine that the American continents never geologically formed in the first place. In this case, there would be no landmass west of the Atlantic Ocean, no North or South America at all. Exploration of how such a world might have looked. Altered ocean currents and global climate systems. The existence of the Americas plays a vital role in regulating ocean currents in the Atlantic Ocean. Without the American landmass, this warm current would not exist, and Europe would likely be colder and more arid. Meanwhile, sub-Saharan Africa could become more humid, and South Asia might turn significantly drier. Global climate systems would become destabilized, and the geographical areas suitable for advanced civilizations could shift dramatically. A missing chapter in evolutionary diversity. The Americas host a remarkable portion of the planet's biodiversity. Animals like jaguars, bison, llamas, and alpacas, and plants such as cacti, maize, and vanilla evolved exclusively on these continents. If the Americas had never existed, none of these species would be present. This loss would not only affect natural ecosystems, but also severely limit the genetic resources available to humanity for agriculture, medicine, and industrial use. A different geography of colonization and expansion. If the American landmass had never existed, European colonization efforts would have been focused exclusively on Africa, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. This geographic limitation could have caused more intense and earlier military conflicts between European powers. Without a vast new continent to absorb surplus population and ambition, internal class struggles in Europe may have escalated faster. Major modern nations would not exist. The complete absence of the Americas would mean that the United States, Canada, Brazil, Mexico, and many other modern nations would never have come into being. This would drastically reshape global geopolitics. World power would likely shift toward Europe and East Asia. Major events such as the Cold War, the rise of the English language as a global lingua franca, and the digital revolution centered in Silicon Valley would never have occurred. Different demographic development and migration dynamics. The Americas were a destination for tens of millions of European and African migrants. Without this outlet, those populations would have remained in their home continents, leading to overpopulation, intensified social tensions, and perhaps earlier revolutions. Cultural diversity as we know it would be far less pronounced, and some regions could have experienced severe internal instability. Slower technological and industrial development. The Americas contributed significantly to technological advancement through natural resources like rubber, and events such as the California Gold Rush and the rise of Silicon Valley. Without these influences, the Industrial Revolution may have been delayed, and technological innovation would have followed a different, perhaps slower, trajectory, focused more heavily on Eurasian and African resources. The absence of a cultural and artistic explosion. Many global cultural forms, jazz, blues, rock, hip-hop, Hollywood films, Latin American literature, samba, salsa, originated in the Americas. Without the cultural fusion that occurred on these continents, the world would lack many of the defining elements of modern popular culture. 20th and 21st century arts would have taken entirely different paths. Different global trade and transportation routes. The presence of the Americas shapes modern oceanic trade by dividing the Atlantic Ocean and facilitating transatlantic commerce. In their absence, the Atlantic would be much wider and less relevant. Global trade would likely have centered around the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and the Indian Ocean, and the Pacific may have become dominant much earlier. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.